And we are live. All right, everyone, welcome back to my channel, Baseball Talk with Nick Morgan. Today, I am coming at you guys with episode 9 of our Who is Better player comparison series. Now, I'm changing things up a little bit. I know at the beginning of the series here, I said 10 episodes in 10 days, but just a little while ago, some of you guys might have been on as we compared starting left fielders in New York baseball, Clint Frazier and Dominic Smith. We're going ahead, changing things up a bit. Episode 9 today, our second to last episode of the series. So back-to-back videos within our Who is Better player comparisons. I really love this series. This is something I think I'm going to go ahead and keep up over the course of the regular season. Maybe run this once a week with players all throughout the league, different divisions, teams, of course. All that. So if you guys want to see more of these types of videos, let me know in the chat, let me know in the comment section, and some good players that I should compare once the season starts. Now, of course, today, as you can see on screen, Aaron Hicks, Brandon Nimmo, we are talking about starting center fielders in New York baseball. Who is the best going into the 2021 regular season? Now, Brandon Nimmo may not necessarily be the starting center fielder. We put Dominic Smith in left personally because I think he's going to be a lot more valuable than if Brandon Nimmo was in left and you had Kevin Pillar or Albert Almora Jr. in center. I think both of those guys, Pillar and Almora, are more of defensive reinforcements and insurance. Yes, they can definitely swing the bat as well, but if you're looking for a lot of production on both sides of the baseball, Dominic Smith should be in left field as Pete Alonso's at first and Brandon Nimmo in center. Of course, that would mean Michael Conforto is the New York Mets right fielder. That makes complete sense. Conforto is a beast. So just for the sake of the series, I have Brandon Nimmo in center field for the New York Mets. It's playing time that I think he is going to get. We've seen him in this position many times before for the New York Mets, fulfill really everywhere in the outfield for his franchise. And then on this flip side of things here, the New York Yankees, Aaron Hicks, switch hitting center fielder. No surprise here. If we go ahead and premise our players prior to diving into the numbers and really taking a look at who is better, Aaron Hicks is a 31-year-old switch hitting primarily center fielder, and he was drafted in 2008 in the first round and selected 14th overall by the Minnesota Twins. Now, fun fact, the last episode we did was left fielders. We had Clint Frazier and Dominic Smith. They were also selected in the first round of their draft. Both were chosen in 2000. I want to say, let's look back here, the 2013 draft. So we've had 3 first-round draft picks, and let's go ahead and make it 4. Brandon Nimmo in the 2011 draft was selected 13th in the first round by the New York Mets. So Hicks drafted by the Twins first round, Nimmo grabbed by the Mets in their first round back in 2011. Going back to the New York Yankees center fielder, he made his Major League Baseball debut on April 1st, 2013, and he had Tommy John right before the 2020 season. It actually ended up being perfect for him, not that he had to have the Tommy John arm surgery, but that by the time he recouped and recovered, he did not miss a single game of the regular season. He had the surgery right when 2019 ended because 2020 was pushed back as a result of COVID-19. He was able to play and he was ready to go on opening day. I believe the first player in history to undergo Tommy John and not miss a single regular season game while rehabbing. So Aaron Hicks out there patrolling center field for the New York Yankees. We go over back to the New York Mets. We talked about Brandon Nimmo, the 27-year-old drafted in 2011. He made his debut on June 26th, 2016 with the Mets. He's a left-handed hitter who could play all 3 outfield positions. And he's honestly very valuable for the Mets. He's not going to be the biggest player on the team, but he's going to go ahead and bring a lot of insurance for the franchise. They have some outfield pieces. They can move some guys around with the depth that they currently are running on their roster. Nimmo being able to play left, center, and right is a huge help. And we're going to look into the 2017 and 2019 stats, 2020, as well as 2021 to fully determine who is the best center fielder. We're getting comments in the chat here. Aaron Hicks is better. I may or may not agree with you. Wait till the end to hear my full opinion, but you're definitely onto something. So without further ado, let's jump into the 2017 to 2019 statistics. If you guys are not familiar with how I run the series, what we do is combine either 2017 to 2019 or 2018 to 2019 based off of service time and playing time. In some cases, we do just look at the individual 2019 season, but we'll look at these few years prior to 2020, and then we'll single out the 2020 6-game abbreviated season, take a look at those numbers, and end things off with Baseball Reference and their 2021 player projections. Now, from 2017 to 2019, this is a 3-season span. Hicks played the entirety of this period with the New York Yankees. Nimmo, of course, all 3 years with the New York Mets. We're looking at games played, and Aaron Hicks is going to appear in 6 more games than Brandon Nimmo and his New York Mets counterpart. 284 games for Hicks, 278 for Brandon. We then look at bats, and this is where there's actually a pretty significant differential. 1,002 at bats for the switch hitting center fielder in pinstripes, and the lefty only had 809 at bats, almost 200 less in 6 games less. Now that can either be based on where Nimmo was placed in the lineup more often than not, or the production that the 1-9 had for the New York Mets in the games he was playing. If they weren't doing well, not getting a lot of ABs in any given game because they weren't scoring a lot of runs, that would definitely be a solution there. So more games for Aaron Hicks, more at-bats, and also nearly 50 more hits, 251 for Aaron, 204 for Brandon. But because of the less games and the less at-bats, mostly the less at-bat statistic, even though there were a lot less hits for Brandon Nimmo, he's going to end up with the higher batting average at 252. Aaron Hicks misses out by 0.002 of a decimal right there. Nonetheless, Brandon Nimmo wins his first category in the 2017 to 2019 span. We then look at some categories that I don't necessarily consider to be huge when determining which player is better. That's going to be runs, doubles, and triples. Another we're going to touch on in a little bit is stolen bases. Now, for these categories, yes, they're important, but you're not going to single out a player. You're not going to say, you know what, Aaron Hicks had more triples in 2017 to 2019, so he's got to be better than Brandon Nimmo. Yes, it might play into the sense in some way, shape, or form, but it's not going to be an individual type thing. The only metric that really does that is WAR, and many people don't even agree with wins above replacement. It's a very controversial stat. Essentially, the higher your WAR, the more valuable you are to your team. But that goes back and forth. That's an ongoing debate with baseball stat heads currently. So we look at runs, though. Nonetheless, 185 times Aaron Hicks crossed home plate in these 3 years. That's a bit more than Brandon Nimmo at 137. But again, this category is not a huge playmaker when it comes to one being better than the other. Doubles, extra base hits. We see doubles, triples, and home runs. Nimmo leads in 2/3 of these categories with 50 doubles and 10 triples. 10 triples is huge. The switch-hitting New York Yankees center fielder only had 46 doubles, so missed by 4 to tie the category, but still that is 4 hits less than Nimmo, and 3 triples compared to 10. We then look at home runs. Aaron Hicks is more of a power hitter. We can see it right here. 54 home runs as compared to the New York Mets, 30. So with more home runs, Aaron Hicks was also able to bring in more runs batted in, 167. That's 70 more ribbies than Brandon Nimmo. 22 stolen bases is 8 more than Nimmo as well in this time frame, 22 to 14. So Hicks is going to lead in home runs, RBI, stolen bases, and also walks and strikeouts. 172 walks. Nimmo reached first base via ball 4 159 times in these 3 seasons. And now we look at strikeouts. Of course, for this category, less is more. If you're a hitter, you don't want to be striking out a whole ton. Aaron Hicks, 250 strikeouts and 271 strikeouts for Brandon Nimmo. This is actually pretty good. 200 more at-bats for the New York Yankees outfielder and only 20 less strikeouts. So less strikeouts for Aaron Hicks in a lot more games and at-bats. Nimmo is going to strike out based on that single statistic quite a bit more often than Aaron Hicks will, and that's not necessarily the best, but everyone does it. So we look at the categories each person is leading in so far. Aaron Hicks gets games, at-bats, hits, runs, home runs, RBI, stolen bases, walks, and strikeouts. Brandon Nimmo has led in 3 of the categories to this point, and that is batting average, doubles, and triples. We now look at the percentages on base, slugging, and OPS. Aaron Hicks, a 359 on base percentage, so that's a pretty fair number for him right there. I would say right around average just off the top of my head. Brandon Nimmo, a 391, so just south of that 400 mark. That is definitely going to help him out with the OPS stat in just a few moments. Aaron Hicks, though, a lot more home runs. That plays a huge contributing factor in slugging percentage. Also, only 4 less doubles, 7 less triples, but nonetheless, he does walk away with a 464 slugging compared to Brandon Nimmo, who ended 2017 to 2019 at 450. OPS is on base plus slugging, so you're totaling up the on base percentage and the slugging percentage, and that's how you get this OPS statistic. Now, because Nimmo led in on-base percentage a lot more than Hicks led in slugging, Brandon will come away with the higher OPS at 841 and an OPS plus at 131. OPS plus essentially measures if you are above, at, or below league average. If your OPS plus is above 100, you are that percent better than the rest of your league in the OPS category. Same thing goes for Aaron Hicks. A 120 OPS plus, he was 20% better than the rest of the league. With OPS, Brandon Nimmo, who's 841 OPS, led him to a 31% OPS plus. So that's 31% above average, rather 131 OPS plus. So we see that Aaron Hicks obviously leads in a lot more categories here, but that does not necessarily mean he is the better center fielder. We have to go ahead and take a look at what categories he actually leads. If he only led in like runs, triples, stolen bases, all that, maybe we can kind of make a case for Brandon Nimmo. But in this particular scenario, Aaron Hicks leading in games and at-bats is huge. He also led in hits. Because he did technically lose the batting average statistic and category, he really doesn't. A 250 to 252 in 200 more at-bats, he is very close to what Brandon Nimmo was able to do. Who's to say that would have been any higher for Brandon if he did play 1,002 at-bats in 284 games compared to his 278 games and 809 ABs. So, technically, Aaron Hicks loses batting average, but it's not like it's 250 to 280. It's very close. I would almost give Aaron Hicks that category just because of his greater playing time. So more at-bats, more games. The average is very close. We also then see a lot of power from Aaron Hicks. This guy will go ahead and hit home runs when he's healthy. He's a great person to have in any 1 to 9 in the order, especially being a switch hitter. The New York Yankees are a very right-handed heavy lineup. Having Aaron Hicks to kind of go ahead and protect Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton, as well as just throw pitchers off a little bit. You look at Judge, Stanton, Voit, LeMahieu, Sanchez, Torres. They are all right-handed batters, with the exception really of Brett Gardner, who could be an everyday starter. There is no other left-handed bat other than Aaron Hicks, so that's huge. Being able to hit from both sides of the batter's box, also another plus for Aaron. More home runs, more RBIs, more stolen bases, a greater walk rate. Though he doesn't lead an on-base OPS or OPS plus, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Aaron Hicks right here. I think that is the very fair way to go. It makes the most sense in my opinion. I mean, he leads in a lot of the major categories, the ones that are meaningful too nonetheless. So Aaron Hicks, the better New York center fielder from 2017 to 2019. Now let's go ahead and take a look at 2020. Because just because Aaron Hicks was better in that 3-year span doesn't mean he's best in the 60-game abbreviated season. We're actually going to see the tides turn a little bit right here. Remember, Aaron Hicks did undergo Tommy John leading up to 2020. He did struggle quite a bit. 54 games played out of the 60-game schedule. For Brandon Nimmo, he played in 55 of the 60 games. So one extra game, more at-bats, 169 to 186. Nimmo also led in hits and batting average, this time by a significant quantity. It was 225 for the Yankees outfielder and 280 for the Mets. So Nimmo leads in the first 4 major categories. And while we're at it, let's look at runs, which again, I don't love too much for the sake of the comparison. But yeah, Brandon Nimmo does lead in the runs category, 28 to 33. Extra base hits, Aaron Hicks was able to total 10 in the 2020 season with 2 triples and 6 home runs. Brandon Nimmo, 2 less doubles, but 1 extra triple and 2 more home runs. So a total of 8 doubles, 3 triples, and 8 dingers for the Mets center fielder. And that was enough to go ahead and help him win 2 out of the 3 categories right there. The runs batted in count was very close, 21 to 18, but the Yankees get back in the win column here as Aaron Hicks picks up more RBIs over the course of his 54 games played. He also stole 3 more bases and walked 8 more times, striking out a total of 5 less times. 38 strikeouts to 43, 41 walks to 33, and 4 stolen bases to just 1. So right now, we do see a significant shift in who is leading the major categories. It went from Aaron Hicks from 2017 to 2019, now to Brandon Nimmo here in 2020, who's currently leading in games, at-bats, hits, average, runs, triples, and homers. Now, Hicks does get doubles, RBIs, stolen bases, walks, and strikeouts, but that is going to cap off his category wins as you look back to Brandon Nimmo and the New York Mets. A 404 on base percentage, 484 slugging, good for an 888 OPS last year in his 55 games. He finished the year at a 146 OPS plus, 46% above league average, and his WAR was 1.8. We're going to touch on WAR momentarily. Now, Aaron Hicks didn't necessarily have terrible numbers here at the plate. A 379 on base, 414 slugging, and a 793 OPS. But his OPS plus was not crazy high, only 21% better than league average last season, and his WAR fell under 1 at 0.7. If you guys are unfamiliar with WAR or the controversy surrounding this stat, let's go ahead and dive into that really quick. Now, WAR stands for wins above replacement. The higher WAR a single player has, the more valuable they are to their team. That means when they're in the lineup, the team is winning more games. Aaron Hicks, when he was did not win as much as they could have, but when he was included in that 1-9, he had a 0.7 wins above replacement. Brandon Nimmo now just under a 2 WAR, and in a regular season, 162 game span, a 2 WAR isn't terrible. 1.8 WAR is nice for Brandon in the sake of this comparison right here because it's 1.1 higher than Aaron Hicks, and that helps him go ahead and secure the 2020 season. We just look at Nimmo, what he was able to accomplish in the 60-game stretch. 55 games he participated in, a higher average, more home runs, triples. He led in all of the high percentages on base slugging, OPS, OPS plus, and WAR. Not a lot of people love WAR just because it's not fitting and it doesn't mold how good a player is per se. They could be on a bad team and just the team doesn't win a lot, so no matter if he's in or not, WAR isn't really going to appreciate over time. It'll really stay the same or depreciate even for that matter. It's not a huge category. Some people live and die by it. I could really go either way. I'm on the fence. WAR is fun to look at just for the sake of being like, okay, yeah, he was valuable, but at the same time, I don't think you should take it into full account and say, well, if you're only singling out this WAR category, you shouldn't be like, well, Mike Trout has a 100 WAR and Aaron Hicks has a 12 WAR. So Mike Trout was an exaggeration. Obviously, we know Mike Trout's a better center fielder, but those WAR numbers just off the top of my head for the sake of the example right here. WAR not huge with a lot of people, but I thought I'd throw it in there just in case. We saw 2017 to 2019, Aaron Hicks was the best New York center fielder, starting New York center fielder, and now here in 2020, the title goes to Brandon Nimmo. To end off our stats, let's dive into 2021 projections courtesy of Baseball Reference. Now, if you are not familiar with the series, how we run this aspect of the videos, Baseball Reference is a great page to go to if you love looking at numbers, really trying to figure out how valuable a player is, what they were able to accomplish in a single season or their entire career. Baseball Reference has virtually everything, offensive and defensive categories included. I love Baseball Reference. I'm on there frequently, and every season, Baseball Reference projects the given numbers and the finalized stat lines for every Major League Baseball player. So essentially, they put out numbers via algorithms based on career averages and recent trends. These numbers they think will closely represent what the finalized statistics look like at the end of the 2021 season, or any season for that matter. So the first thing you see at the top of your screen on the graphics is 76% reliability. That means that Baseball Reference is 76% confident in the numbers they are releasing for both Aaron Hicks and Brandon Nimmo. And that's not always the case. The same position players do not always have the same percent reliability, but it just happens to be that way here for Hicks and Brandon. Obviously, the closer you are to 100%, the more confident Baseball Reference feels, the better chances they think these numbers closely assimilate with what it looks like come late September. Aaron Hicks with a 76% reliability rate, which is honestly pretty good. The highest we've seen, I think, is 87 so far in the series. The lowest is like in the 50s and 60s. But they like Aaron Hicks and the projections they're giving him for the most part. And they're saying, Baseball Reference, he's going to have 429 at-bats with 101 hits, a .235 average, and scoring 73 times. Now, these numbers are fair. I get that Aaron Hicks had a very down 2020 season, not the numbers that he's used to putting up in a single year. I do think he's going to bounce back, though, and I think he's going to play a huge role for the New York Yankees. Of course, he's their starting center fielder. He's going to be in the top or middle of the Yankees lineup. But I think Aaron Hicks will hit north of 235. I think a lot of these numbers might be a little bit low for both participants and both players here. But nonetheless, according to Baseball Reference, which is what we're basing who's the better center fielder on, Baseball Reference has a .235 average and 429 at-bats for Hicks. We look at Brandon Nimmo. They are giving him 7 more at-bats, 9 more hits, and a .252 batting average. So in 2020, Brandon Nimmo definitely ran away with batting average. This time, it's not as far away. They're not as separated. But it is still a pretty substantial difference. Brandon Nimmo with a .252 average compared to .235 for Aaron Hicks. The run differential comes down to 1 run scored. 73 for the Yankees, 74 for the New York Mets. Brandon Nimmo takes the first 4 categories of the 2021 projections. We now look at extra base hits, and Hicks will have 19 doubles, tallying 2 triples and 20 homers. On the flip side of things, his New York Mets counterpart projected 23 doubles, 5 triples, and 18 home runs. So again, we kind of see Aaron Hicks back with more power, which is what it kind of should be. Not saying that Brandon Nimmo is not a power hitter, just Aaron Hicks should have more pop on paper than Nimmo if we look at these kind of players and what they're like over the course of their careers. So 20 home runs, Aaron Hicks will lead. Nimmo will take both doubles and triples, 23 doubles, 5 triples. Hicks 19 and 2 respectively. RBI counts a little bit higher for the New York Yankees center fielder, as he's going to go ahead and have 64 runs batted in the 2021 season according to Baseball Reference. Now Nimmo with 53, still a very good total, just not quite enough to catch up, tie, or win the RBI category. We're moving on to stolen bases, and again, stolen bases, runs, and doubles, I could kind of care less about for the sake of the argument, but Aaron Hicks is going to have 1 extra stolen base according to Baseball Reference and what they think via their algorithms, 7-6. We look at walks, and it's very close yet again, 77 walks for the left-handed Nimmo, 74 for the switch-hitting Hicks, 114 strikeouts for the man in pinstripes. And the other New York team starting center fielder has 130 punch-outs projected on the season. A lot of numbers that I'm throwing at you guys right here. A lot of repetition just in what we're discussing since 2017 to now. If we look at it, not taking into account on base slugging and OPS, Nimmo already is the better center fielder in 2021. And then you look at these final three categories and you realize that it's going to go to Brandon yet again. He leads in all three on base slugging and OPS, 381, 452, 833 respectively. Aaron Hicks, they're still having him with a very down year, are projecting him to have a 349 on base, 429 slugging, 778 OPS. I personally think he's better than that. As a Yankees fan, I'm hoping he does better than that. It would be nice to see that slugging in the 500s, near the 500s. That's probably a lot to ask, but like 470 would be a nice number to shoot for Hicks. The on base, I would love it to be right around 380, 390, and the OPS, of course, would adjust accordingly. But at the end of the day, if we look at the projections from Baseball Reference, Brandon Nimmo is set to be, he's poised to be the better center fielder in New York baseball. Take that for what you will, but he leads in all the major categories: the on-base slugging, OPS, batting average, at-bats, hits. He doesn't lead in home runs, RBIs, or stolen bases. But really, I don't think that makes much of a difference. This is kind of the same trap we fell into with the left field comparisons that we had in the last episode between Clint Frazier and Dominic Smith. Now, obviously, the numbers suggest one thing, and my personal opinion is going to go ahead and say another. In a good year when Aaron Hicks is healthy, I think he is the better center fielder. His defense is strong. Nimmo is too, and Nimmo is quick on his feet, so he can really track down the ball, especially if it's hitting the gap. He's going to be able to make good plays. But Aaron Hicks, I think when he's healthy, the switch hitting bat, he's not pressured, neither is Nimmo, because there are so many good guys in front and behind him in both lineups. I like Aaron Hicks a little bit better when it comes down to these two center fielders. Overall, my personal preference would be Aaron Hicks. 2017 to 2019 Hicks, I think, is what we should hope for here in 2021. Not necessarily saying that that's what we're going to get numbers-wise, but I'm really pulling for the best. I have faith in Aaron Hicks. I'm going to hope that he can go ahead and put up some really strong stats over the course of 2021 offensively. I'm going to go with Hicks as the better center fielder in New York, just based off of, again, personal preference. Statistically speaking, Brandon Nimmo really should be your guy at the plate. Now, we're not taking into account defensive metrics or numbers, simply the eye test, but go ahead and let me know down below in the comments section and in the chat who you think is the better center fielder in New York going into this 2021 regular season. But guys, that's going to go ahead and end it for me here. If you enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like down below, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Episode 10 is the final episode of the series before opening day hits. We are comparing right fielders, and it's gonna be a good one. Aaron Judge and Michael Conforto of the New York Yankees, of the New York Mets, respectively. It's going to be a very fun episode, going out with a bang. Huge names, a great position, and what should make for a great conversation as well. But episode 9 in the books of Who is Better Player Comparison Series. Aaron Hicks versus Brandon Nimmo in center field for both New York baseball teams. Guys, that's going to end it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like down below, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you all next time. Peace.